Welcome to this video, everyone. My name is Chief, or as routinely called, Chief. The premise of this video is really simple. We're going to talk about everything we know about the MCU, the comics, the TV shows, and we're going to circle around the rumor mill to find out what characters could become in the Marvel Strike Force, what should become in the Marvel Strike Force, and what if. So there are over 7,000 Marvel characters in existence, and 132 of those characters are in Marvel Strike Force, which leaves us about 98% of the characters to talk about. Not knowing which character to start off with, I did what anybody would do when they don't have an answer. I Googled it. And coming in at number 17 on the list was SheHulk. Now, the origin of SheHulk starts in the early 1980s, where she started off as the savage SheHulk before moving on to what was become the sensational SheHulk in these lines of comic stories. Now, her powers originated from a blood transfusion she received from Bruce Banner. After the blood transfusion, she had a mild version of the Hulk, where she can transform from herself, Jennifer Walters, to the Hulk at will whenever she got a little bit angry. Now, admittedly so, I wasn't exactly excited to talk about SheHulk for my very first character in my very first video, but she does fit the mold for a character that could be coming to game. With the upcoming Disney Plus announcement rumor that she will have her own TV show. Also, one of my favorite stories regarding SheHulk comes in the Age of Ultron storyline, where she goes on essentially what is a suicide mission with Luke Cage to confront what she believes is Ultron. When she gets there, she finds out that it isn't Ultron, so she needs to tell the Avengers that something else is going on. Not going to leave any spoilers for you. So she throws Luke Cage out the building that they are in, and he attempts to get away, but what she does is she sacrifices herself so that he can, and she succumbs to a whole bunch of Ultron minions and eventually gets shot in the side of the head. SheHulk can be a very exciting character if done right. Let's get into her kit. So for SheHulk, we're going to compare her to Strife. She's going to be a hero, global, bio, protector, Hawks. Her basic is going to be very similar to Vision's basic. It will chain to 1 to 2 enemies. Her special, which is going to be her best move out of all of them, is going to be a first turn taunt. It's going to give 2-time defense up, 2-time deflect, 2-time counter. Her special is going to be very similar to Deadpool's special. It's going to chain to 2 to 4 targets with a rebound chain. Her passive will be a 20% increase in health, also giving her Hulk allies an extra 10% health increase. The only T4 I would put on her moves would be her special, which would max out her 2-time defense, 2-time deflect, and 2-time counter. That's right, I said Hawks. Much like the comics did with the Hulk, where they involuntarily sent him on a ship that eventually landed in Sakaar, the MCU did the same thing but voluntarily. Now, the development at Marvel Strike Force has pretty much done the same thing. In my what should be coming to the game, I proposed that the Worldbreaker Hulk replaced regular Hulk. Much in the way of how Dark Phoenix appears when she dies when in Phoenix form, Worldbreaker Hulk would appear after defeating the Incredible Hulk. So let me play how this happens. The Incredible Hulk has 75% of his max health as it stands right now. When he dies, Worldbreaker Hulk appears, and he has an additional 75% health, bringing his health to a total of 150. and you'll see in this kit. So for the Hulk, we're going to leave him largely the same. We're going to give him only 75% of what he has currently in his max health. And the basis of this is when he dies, now that he's a little bit weaker, Worldbreaker Hulk appears. Now, as he was a protector in his Hulk form, he turns into a brawler in his World War Hulk form. All attacks will be multiplied by 2.0. His attacks will largely be the same for his basic and his ultimate, with his special turning into something similar to Rhino and Juggernaut's bulldozing move. And to round out the Hulk team, we are going to add Red Hulk, Red SheHulk, and Son of Hulk Scar. But we'll do those at a later video. Now, I would be excited if Worldbreaker Hulk can come to the game. That mechanic would be really dynamic, and we can really mishmash some of the teams that we can utilize with him, and it would just be incredible. Now, enough with the Hawks. This leads me to my favorite character by far, and which actually really why I wanted to make this video, and I'm talking about no other than Apocalypse. And I'm not talking about the Apocalypse in the comics now or in any very version. I'm talking about the 90s Fox animated series for X-Men Apocalypse. The one that is omnipotent, can turn his limbs to any shape. He can move, he can grow to any size. He is basically unstoppable. Recently in the comics, he had a falling out where he fought Nimrod and lost, which I wasn't really a big fan of. So let's get into what Apocalypse would look like in this game. Apocalypse is going to be compared to Thanos. He's going to be a villain, global, tech, controller, mutant, horseman. His basic is going to be similar to Ant-Man's Stomp, where he gets really big and comes down on his opponent and stomps him. He's going to have a very powerful special where he gives his fellow horsemen 4 buffs, and he's going to give the enemies 4 debuffs. His ultimate is going to be a scene out of the 90s X-Men show where he grows really big and shoots lasers out of his hands. His passive will be giving his horsemen an additional 20% stack increase to the entire stats. Now, the interesting thing with Apocalypse would be that he has these horsemen, and traditionally throughout the years, they've all been different characters. There's many characters in the game right now that have been horsemen, most notably Magneto from the movie. We've had Mr. Sinister from the comic books, Wolverine from the comic books, Gambit, who's not in the game, he's been a horseman. So essentially what you would have to do is you'd have to pull all these characters from all these different teams, and you would make one really good meta team, but you would lose all these other teams that would essentially be useless without, you know, Magneto on the Brotherhood and such. So it would be really interesting to see how this would be played out in war. You could have teams that would be, one team would be ultimate, and then it would leave their defense just completely decimated, and it'd be interesting to see if they would actually go that route. Now, would they continue to put a power move on in war, or make it just an arena team? That'd be a different story. Now, I've got to admit, thinking of Apocalypse in this game gets me really excited, although I don't think it's going to happen for a long time. And if you were coming to the game, I think we would need the Black Order and maybe the Inhumans and a couple other teams to kind of have their time to shine, with eventually bringing in Apocalypse, and say maybe in the next year or so. That would be my wish list. And remember, if you like this video, like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and come play games with me on Twitch. We could talk about comics and what characters you want to see in the Marvel Strike Force game. Thank you very much. And most importantly, don't forget to follow us on YouTube, as in our next video we look to dissect a bloodsucker, talk about a robot, and look to redo the House of M? I'm centered. You can see me. I'm talking to you. Actually, this might be the better option. And I don't know if there's any other way. I'm pretty centered. Let's see. Okay, so I'm kind of centered like that, and I can show things over here, and I can show things over here. I can talk, I can show my arms. You can hear me pretty good. I'm not super close. You can't tell I have super hairy arms. Maybe get a better shirt, not a green one. Or maybe I do wear this green one, stick out. Actually, no, it's March. But let me just start off by saying, welcome to the video. We are going to be talking about what if. Maybe I should get a baseball. Maybe like that. Maybe I wear a really blue shirt. We are here in the dojo, as you can see behind me. As you can see behind me, we are in the dojo, and we are recording our first video for Marvel Strike Force.